This video is going over the law of sines, so your learning target is I can model and solve problems using the law of sines. Okay, so pay attention to the picture at the left. Notice that the angles are in capital letters and the little sides are in lowercase letters. Also notice that when I say big A and little a, I'm talking about angle and a side across from each other. So if you look at big B and little b, they're right across from each other. If you look at big C and little c, they're right across from each other. So that's very important for when I write the law of sines, because I want you to understand what I'm talking about when I write this. Okay. So previously you learned how to solve a right triangle, and now we're going to look at if it's not a right triangle, what you can do. Okay, so this is called the law of sines. The law of sines can be used to find side and angle measures given two angles and any side. So I don't know if you remember Math 2, but there are a lot of triangle congruency theorems. So when it says AAS, it's saying angle, angle, side, or angle, side, angle. Or you can use the law of sines when you have two side lengths and an angle outside of them. So side, side, angle. A little confusing, I know. But here is the law of sines. So if I take the sine of an angle and the side across from it, it's equal to another sine of an angle and the side across from it. You can also use the third side, sine of an angle, and the side across from it. So it's the sine of an angle divided by the side across is going to be equal to the sine of another angle divided by the side across. Now, I know I wrote 3 up in the law of sines because that's how it's defined, but we're only going to have 2 fractions equal each other, okay? And then we're going to cross multiply. But that's basically what it's saying, and it's really not difficult as long as you have a calculator and you know how to type it in. Okay. So if you look at number 1, I'm going to highlight a little bit. So here is an angle, and there's a side across from it. And here's another angle and a side across from it. So the law of sines says I can do the sine of an angle, so I'm going to do 104, divided by the side across from it, and it should equal the sine of another angle divided by the side across from it. Okay. So then what you're going to do is you're going to cross multiply. So when I cross multiply, some people say it's the butterfly, if that's how you want to think of it. Alright, so the 2 I highlighted in blue, I'm going to write together. And then the 2 I highlighted in green are going to be multiplied together. Okay. So the part in blue is just a number in my calculator. I can go ahead and put that in, or what you could do is, remember the whole point of this is to get x by itself. So what I would need to do is to get rid of sine 47, I would divide both sides by sine 47. So what I'm going to type in my calculator is this right here. I'm going to do 15 times the sine of 104, hit enter, and I'm going to divide by the sine of 47 and hit enter. When you do that, you should get 19.9. That is your answer. That's how you use the law of sines. You cross multiply, like from middle school, and then you solve just a regular algebra equation, and you type it in your calculator. Okay, so I'm going to erase this just because it looks a little complicated. Okay, so look at the next one. We have an angle and a side across from it. Oh, my pen just died. Okay, try this again. Okay, there we go. And then we have another angle, but notice we don't have this side. But that's okay, because we know that a triangle equals 180 degrees. So I could do 180 minus 42 minus 63, and I get 75. Alright, so it's a little misleading, but you do have another angle and a side across from it. Okay. Alright, so here's what the law of sine says. If I take the sine of an angle, let me do it in the same color. The sine of an angle divided by the side across, it should equal the sine of another angle divided by the side across. So now I'm going to cross multiply. These two are going to be multiplied together. That becomes x times the sine of 75 equals, these two will be multiplied together, 28 times the sine of 42. And the whole point is to get x by itself. So I'm going to divide both sides by the sine of 75. Alright, so in your calculator, you're going to do 28 times the sine of 42, hit enter, divided by the sine of 75, hit enter, and you should get 19.4. Alright, okay, so for number 3, I want you to see if you can set it up. Just set up the ratio, pause the video and try it in 1, 2, 3. Okay, so here's how the ratio looks. Then we're going to cross multiply. So those two go together, these two go together. I want you to write what it should look like. Pause the video and try it. 1, 2, 3. And then the last thing, I need to get rid of the sine 92. So I'm going to divide by the sine of 92. So now x is by itself. All I need to do is type in my calculator 11 sine 65 divided by sine 92. I get x equals 10. Okay, so I want you to see if you can do the same thing. I want you to try number 4. You can try the entire thing if you need to, or you can push play and hear me work through it. But actually, try this, pause the video, see if you can think it through. So try that in 1, 2, 3. Alright, so you might find that you actually don't have enough information, but you have enough information that you can find it. So if I know a triangle equals 180, then I know that this angle over here is actually 113. So now I can write my law of sines. Okay, and now I can cross multiply. And now I can divide both sides by the sine of 113. And I get x equals 8.7, sorry. Alright, so that's how we do those. Not too bad. Okay, so now we're going to look at a word problem, which I know nobody likes, but we have to do it. So a pilot begins a flight traveling 80 miles northwest, so that's how they got this right here. To avoid a storm, he makes a turn, then returns to his original location. A diagram of his flight course is shown to the left. Find the total distance of the flight. So when I do this, I want to find both sides. So I'm going to label this one, let's label this one X. And I'm also going to label this one Y. So I want to find both of those. And actually I'm going to do that in black just so we don't get our colors confused. Okay, so let's focus on one first. I don't know. We'll look at X first. That sounds good. Okay, so if I want to find X, I'm definitely going to use this side and this angle across. And then I just need another angle and another side across. So since I have the 80 already, then I want the angle up here. And I don't have that, but I can figure that out because a triangle equals 180. So 180 minus 108 minus 15 gives me 57. So now I can set it up. Okay, so this is how I set it up. The sine of 108 divided by x equals the sine of 57 divided by 80. Now I'm going to cross multiply. And now I'm going to divide both sides by the sine of 57. So I'm going to round to one decimal place. I'm going to call this 90.7. So now I know that he has definitely traveled 80 miles and 90.7 miles, but I don't know what that y is. So I'm going to erase the picture just so you can see a little bit better. And now we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to find y this time. Okay, so I'm definitely going to use the 15 angle because that's the side that y is across from. And then it doesn't matter which other set of angle and side, but I'm just going to use the sine of 57, and I'm going to use 80 across from it. You could have picked the sine of 108 over 90.7, but it has been rounded a little bit. That's why I'm not going to use that one, just because it might be a little off. Okay, so now I'm going to cross multiply, and now I'm going to divide both sides by the sine of 57, and I get 24.7. Okay, so I know the pilot traveled 80 miles. He also went 90.7 miles. And now I've figured out that he went 24.7 to get back to his original spot. So the pilot's total distance was 195.4. Alright, so that's how we would do a word problem using the law of sines. Okay, so those first 5 problems, what we did is we found missing side lengths. So now we're going to look at finding angles. But make sure you look at this part that says watch out. So when finding angles, it's possible to have one solution, 2 solutions, or no solution. And this is called the ambiguous case. Okay, so here's just some stuff to know. The sine function always has a range between -1 and 1. Okay. Angles with a positive sine function can lie in quadrants 1 or 2. To find the other possible angle, you can subtract from 180 degrees. The sum of the angle measures in a triangle is always 180 degrees. Don't forget that. And just remember that no triangle can have 2 obtuse angles. And I'll give you some examples and show you what all this means, because I know it probably doesn't mean anything right now. Okay. So, directions. Information about triangle ABC is given below. Check your answers and give all possibilities. So make sure that you are reading directions, especially when you're taking a quiz or a test. If I say give me all possibilities, you have to state all of them. Notice that in these, they don't give you the actual triangle, so that's the first thing we're going to do. We're going to draw a triangle, and we're going to label it A, B, and C. And now we're just going to use the information in the picture. So it says the measure of angle A is 60 degrees. The side AB is 30. BC is 27. And we want to find angle C. So I'm going to put an X there. Okay, so that's what we're looking at. Still going to use the law of sines like we have been. So here's an angle and a side across and an angle. And so we'll set it up like we have been. The sine of an angle divided by the side across is equal to the sine of an angle divided by the side across. So once again, we're going to cross multiply. So these two are going to go together. And then these two will go together. Okay, we need to get rid of the 27 in front of sine, so I'm going to divide both sides by 27. So here's what I have so far. I have the sine of x equals, I'm going to use at least 4 decimal places, so let me do 0.9623. And then from previous math courses, we know that when we need to find an angle, we're actually going to do the inverted sine. And that'll give us an angle. So when we put this on our calculator, we get 74.2. So this answer is accurate if we knew that angle C was an acute angle. But maybe angle C was an obtuse angle. So my other possibility would be to do 180 minus 74.2. And I would get 105.8. So my 2 answers for angle C would be 74.2 or 105.8. And that's just because we're not given a picture. We don't know if the angle is acute or obtuse. So we have two possibilities. An acute angle, 74.2, and an obtuse angle, 105.8. Okay, so what I want you to do right now is I want you to pause the video and I want you to see if you can draw a picture for the second problem. So try that in 1, 2, 3. Alright, so here's my picture. I'm going to use these two and these two, and I'm going to set it up using the law of sines. So the sine of an angle divided by the side across equals the sine of an angle divided by the side across. So I'm going to cross multiply like I always do. 34 times the sine of 89 equals 26 times the sine of x. I need to get rid of that 26. I'm going to divide both sides by 26. So I have the sine of x equals, I'm going to round to at least 4 decimal places. Remember that in order to find an angle, that's when you do the inverted sign in your calculator. Alright, so I get the x, and I get an error message. So this one is a no solution. And that's okay because this is what we said over here, that it's possible to have one solution, two solutions, or no solution. So the first problem we did had two solutions. That was okay. The second problem we did had no solutions. That's okay. And now we're going to look at these two right here. Okay, so go ahead and draw pictures for both of these. I'm going to pause the video, give you time to see if you can draw the picture, and then we're going to set it up and solve. Okay, so there's your picture. Now I want you to go ahead and set up the ratio equals a ratio using the law of sines. You can do it for both of these. So try that in 1, 2, 3. And now you can go ahead and cross multiply. Alright, and now you're going to divide by the number in front of sine. So on the first problem, I'm going to divide by 24. And then the second problem, I'm going to divide by 34. Alright, so when you do this, make sure you round to at least 1 decimal place. So type that in your calculator and see what you get. Alright, and now do the inverted sign for both of these values. So inverted sign equals x. Inverted sign equals x. Okay, so we did these two examples at the same time because you're actually going to get the same type of answer. So remember, we don't know if angle C is, or angle B and angle A are actually obtuse or acute. Kinda don't know. So if I do 180 minus 58.9, I get 121.1. And the next one, if I do 180 minus 38, I get 142. However, on the first one, notice that angle C, and I'm going to do this in purple, was 102. I cannot have two obtuse angles, so this answer cannot happen. The only one that could possibly happen is that. So when you look at the next one, okay, so remember that triangles, all three angles have to add to give you 180. So if I used, I know that 95 is definitely one angle. And if I did my other angle was 142, that number is greater than 180. So the other angle wouldn't even be able to exist. So 142 doesn't work. So 38 is the only answer. So now we've done examples of two solutions on the first problem, a no solution. Here are examples of one solution because just mathematically it doesn't work. And now we're going to do these last two. So first thing I want you to do is I want you to draw a picture. So pause the video and try that in 1, 2, 3. Go ahead and set up your ratios using the law of sines. So when you get to the second one, what you might see is that you actually need this little one right here. So we're going to go ahead and set up the sine of y over 24, and we're going to have to do that so that we can eventually find x. So that's the only difference. Still works the same way. Now go ahead and cross multiply both of them, and then divide by the number in front of sine. And we know that we're going to have to do the inverted sign, so go ahead and do that. And because we don't know if the angles are obtuse or acute, if I do 180 minus 31.2, I also get 148.8. And for the second one, if I do 180 minus 69.4, I get 110.6. So now we need to think about, is it possible that it has two solutions, or one solution, or zero solutions? So I want you to think about it and see if you can figure it out. Just take a minute and think and see if you can eliminate some possibilities, or maybe if both of them work. So try that in 1, 2, 3. Alright, so the first one, they're both good. I'm not going to have two obtuse angles if I use the 148.8. I don't know if it's acute or obtuse. If I add stuff together, I'm not going to get anything bigger than 180, so everything's good. The first one has two answer choices. The second one's a little trickier. Okay, because I know that one angle is 125. And if I do 125 plus 69.4, I'm going to get something bigger than 180. So that can't work. And if I do 125 plus 110, obviously bigger than 180. So this one, I didn't even get to find angle C, but it is a no solution. Just because I don't have enough information. These don't work. Okay, so I think the math is pretty easy when you're doing law of signs, because you're just setting up a ratio equals a ratio, you're cross multiplying, you're using buttons on a calculator that you've done in previous math courses. The only thing is when you get to the end, if you're trying to find angles, you have to remember that triangles can't have two obtuse angles. All three angles have to equal 180. So if you have two and they're bigger than 180, then something's up. And just remember that you can either have two solutions, one solution, or no solution. And that's the examples that we went through. So email me, send me a remind message, come up for tutoring, do whatever you need to do if you have any questions.